The doorbell rang and the man told his daughter to open the door. Lost in her fantasy, the girl didn't hear her father. The man raised his voice. "Are you deaf? Go see who's at the door." The girl apologized, "Sorry, father," and got up to approach the door. It was the landlord. He looked at the girl intently and said, "Call your father." The girl went back inside. Her father sat in a corner, head down. He was going through withdrawal, having been clean for a day. The girl approached him cautiously and said softly, "Father, the landlord is here." The man snapped, "Did you tell him I'm home, idiot?" Then he muttered, "What does he want?" The girl replied, "I don't know. He wants to talk to you." The man stood up and went to the door. "Hello?" he greeted, blowing his nose. The landlord stated, "It's been 2 months since you paid your rent." The man paused, then pleaded, "Please, I need more time to gather the rent." The landlord fixed a stern look on him and said, "Just 1 day. I'll return the day after tomorrow. If the rent isn't ready, I'll start eviction proceedings." The man lowered his head as if to kiss the landlord's hand, but the landlord pulled away, saying, "Don't do that, druggie." The landlord left, and the addicted man returned inside. The teenage girl felt a lump in her throat. Her father stood near her momentarily, then said, "I need some money. Go to your mother's relatives and borrow some." The girl replied, "Father, you know they won't lend us any money." The father shouted, "Then borrow it from them." The girl went to her mother's family, but aside from rebukes, she got nothing, returning home feeling dejected and bankrupt. "Did you get the money?" her father demanded. She shook her head and replied, "No, father." "Useless, weak girl." "What should I tell the landlord tomorrow when he comes to collect the rent?" her father lamented. The next day the landlord arrived as promised. "Have you prepared the rent?" the landlord demanded. The addict man hung his head and pleaded, "Please give me more time, I promise to pay you." "If you intended to pay, you would have paid today," the landlord retorted. He then pushed the addict man aside and entered the home, searching for something valuable to seize in lieu of the unpaid rent. Suddenly, he noticed the teenage girl and smiled, revealing his yellowed teeth. He hesitated, seeming to change his mind. He walked towards the door and said to his tenant, "Follow me, I think there might be a way to settle your debt." The addict man obeyed and left the house with him. The greedy landlord hesitated for a moment, then suggested, "You have a treasure at home. You could make some good money if you want." "A treasure? What do you mean?" the addict man asked, confused. The greedy landlord insinuated something about the girl. The girl's father raised his hand to strike the landlord, but the greedy landlord grabbed his hand, pushing him away. "Tomorrow I'll return," he threatened, "and either the house will be emptied or the rent will be paid." With that, he left the addict man alone. The man returned home and went straight to his dirty sofa, sitting down heavily. The girl asked anxiously, "Did he agree to give us more time?" "No, he didn't," her father replied grimly. "We either pay him the rent tomorrow or face eviction." "But we have nowhere else to go, father." "No one will give us a place to live," she said, dropping her head. The addict man fell silent for a moment, then said, "Only you can help me out of this awkward situation." "How, father?" the girl asked, puzzled. "Well, you know you're a pretty girl," her father began cautiously. "And every man dreams of being with a girl like you." "Father, you want me to be with that man?" she said, shocked. "Oh no, not marriage," her father clarified quickly. "You could be his girlfriend. He has a lot of money. We could live here without paying a cent in rent. You could buy nice clothes, a cell phone, hot meals, and much more." The girl was stunned. She couldn't believe her father was suggesting this. She remained silent, listening to him. That night, the girl thought long and hard about her father's words. Finally, she made a decision. "This isn't my place anymore," she said to herself. "I have to leave him, just like Mother did." When her father was deeply asleep, she quietly left the house, leaving him alone with the landlord. She walked until she was far out of sight, ensuring her addict father wouldn't find her. After hours of walking, exhaustion set in. She sat down near a house, closed her eyes, and fell asleep. What happens next? Some time passed before the door of the house opened. An elderly woman stepped out, spotted the girl, and gently placed her hand on the girl's shoulder. "Dear, come to my home. You can sleep there," she said softly. The girl slowly opened her eyes, wiped away tears with her hands, and looked up at the old woman. The woman repeated her invitation. The girl nodded silently, rising to follow the old woman into her home. The old woman gestured to a chair. "Please have a seat. You must be hungry." "I'll bring breakfast for you," she said kindly, then disappeared into the kitchen. Shortly after, she returned with a tray, placing it on the table. "Come, have your breakfast," she urged. The girl approached the table, sat down, and began eating as the old woman joined her. "Did you and your family recently move to the city?" the old woman inquired. "No, why?" the girl replied between bites. "I thought perhaps you had lost your way home," the old woman explained gently. The girl remained silent. "Where are your parents? I'm sure they must be worried sick about you," the old woman pressed kindly. Still chewing, the girl kept her silence. "Tell me, dear, do you have parents?" the old woman asked with concern. "Yes, I do," the girl answered quietly. "Oh, that's good. If you give me their phone number, I can call them and let them know you're safe here," the old woman offered. The girl paused mid-bite and replied, "I assure you they're not worried about me." "Why do you say that?" the old woman asked gently. "My father is an addict," the girl explained. "When my mother realized he wouldn't quit drugs, she left us." The old woman interjected sympathetically. "Do you have any siblings?" "No, I don't," the girl replied softly. "So you live with your father?" the old woman remarked, understanding the situation. The girl corrected her, saying simply, "I lived." The old woman asked with concern, "Has something happened to your father?" The girl shook her head and replied softly, "No. I assume you ran away from home. May I ask why?" the old woman inquired gently. "He wanted to sell me to our landlord," the girl confessed. The old woman stared at her in disbelief and repeated, "He wanted to sell his daughter?" "Yes, madam," the girl affirmed. "Can you live with your mother? Do you know where she is?" the old woman asked further. "No, madam," the girl replied sadly. "Do you have any relatives you could stay with?" the woman pressed. "They don't want me," the girl replied, her voice filled with resignation. "Poor girl," the old woman murmured sympathetically. A few hours later, the old woman suddenly exclaimed, "I found it," and continued, "I know someone who can help you, a godly man. Yes, only he can help you. Get up, we have to go to him." The helpless girl got up and followed the old woman to the godly man's home. Upon arriving, the old woman knocked on the door. A portly man answered. The old woman greeted him warmly, and they entered the home together. She relayed the girl's story to the man and pleaded, "Please find a foster home for her. She has no place to stay tonight." The godly man nodded solemnly. I can't promise to find a foster home immediately, but I will provide shelter for her for a few days, and then we'll find a more permanent solution. God bless you, the old woman said gratefully, kissing the man's hands. She turned to the girl and assured her, he is a truly compassionate man. Trust him. He will find a safe place for you. With that, she kissed the girl on the cheek and left her in the care of the pious man. After the old woman left, the godly man gestured for the girl to sit down. She obeyed while he went to his room. Hours passed and night fell. The pious man emerged from his room and apologized. I am sorry, my child. I completely forgot about you. He called his assistant and instructed, prepare a room for this child. She is my guest tonight. After supper, a simple room with a chair, table, and bed was prepared for her. The girl closed the door, went to bed, and fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, she suddenly felt someone lying next to her and touching her. Startled, she jumped out of bed, ran to the light switch, and turned it on. It was the godly man, naked in her bed. Trembling with fear, she ran to the door, opened it, and fled from the pious man's home. The weather was bitterly cold, and the helpless girl had nowhere to go. She felt she had to keep running. An hour passed, and she found herself near a bridge where a fire was burning. The warmth drew her closer, and she saw a homeless man lying nearby. This fire is mine, and this is my place. Find somewhere else, the homeless man grumbled. I just want to warm myself, then I'll leave. I promise not to disturb you, the girl pleaded. Without saying a word, the homeless man pulled his head under his blanket. The girl sat by the fire, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, and eventually closed them. The next morning, she woke up to find a blanket wrapped around her and a letter beside her. She picked it up and read, I understand you need this blanket and the matchbox more than I do. I'm giving you this place. It's safe here. No one will harm you.